it's Conservative infighting now, but what about NDP infighting? Is that around the corner? And should David Eby be worried, for instance, about that environmental wing of his party migrating to the Greens, who now have a new young leader, Emily Lowan? Should he be worried?
I think, first of all, I wouldn't be too concerned about Emily Lowan at this point. She doesn't have a seat in the House. I can't imagine either of the other two Green members are going to give up their seat for a by-election. And if they did, she'd probably win in Saanich North and the Islands. I'm not sure she'd win West Vancouver, Sea to Sky, but that's besides the point. As Andrew Weaver said, she's very intelligent. She knows what she's doing, but she's very young, and I'm not sure the leadership is necessarily a threat right now. But listen, Eby has his own problems within his caucus, and a certain amount of that goes with the territory. But I do know even this week in Victoria, within that caucus, there's still quite a bit of chatter, certainly about Gary Begg. He's the member for Surrey Guildford, as we know. He was the Solicitor General and Minister of Public Safety for a very short period of time before he was essentially booted from from the cabinet. So there's kind of a little bit of backroom speech about that. But interestingly enough, Gary challenged the Premier's preferred caucus chair, being Stephanie Higginson, and he actually won. He actually successfully, by a narrow margin, but he did successfully challenge her and took over as caucus chair. Within that caucus, and I think within the political realm, if you will, in Victoria, that's seen as a direct shot at Eby by Begg. So that sort of right there kind of shows you there is some folks in that caucus that, will they, I think they've been around long enough. The NDP machine is sort of strong enough to make sure they don't say it publicly, but they have the convention next month, and there is a leadership review scheduled for that. I also know there are some members in that caucus that plan to within the convention, challenge Eby's leadership. And now that raised the question: well, who in that caucus would be A, prepared, or B, qualified to take over? Number one. And number two, the nice thing about being in government, when you're the Premier, and if you've got problems within your caucus or you're the leader, there's a lot of stuff you can do to distract. Because there's always something you can be talking about. I mean, Mike Farnworth has said there's going to be 18 pieces of legislation this session, which is a lot for a 6-week fall session. He can constantly refer back to Donald Trump and the tariffs. He's now in a very public fight, if you will, with the Premier in Alberta. So when John Rustad has problems, there's nothing really to hide behind, because aside from question period, all you have to talk about is the infighting and the misdirection within the Conservatives. Whereas when it's with government, all they'll say is, yeah, but let me tell you about Danielle Smith, or but let me tell you about all this great stuff we're doing, or let me yell and scream about Donald Trump. And it does kind of distract. Does that mean there's not issues within that caucus? There absolutely is issues, and they're being talked about this week. I know that for a fact.